7.7 The Zone in Huntsville, Alabama, leading us out on Monday. Drew DeArmond, I hope all is well. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Welcome, Ryan. I'm always glad to be back on in the city of Tuscaloosa. There's been a lot of celebrating going on in Southeastern Conference basketball, but unfortunately it's on the other side of the state.
There is a lot of celebrating. They were able to win the SEC championship. The SEC championship. I'm sorry, I misquoted. And for those out there that are not on Twitter, you will never get the joke, but a TV station in Birmingham, Alabama, recognized Auburn as the 2018 SEX champion instead of the SEC tournament champion. So congratulations for Auburn. I wonder if it was with cows or pigs or exactly what it was with, but they are the 2019 SEX champions across the state.
Well, they certainly won 4 games in 4 days and played outstanding basketball. They actually played with effort and intensity and energy and commitment. And that was the most alarming thing, I think, as I was in Nashville, Tennessee, covering the University of Alabama after, they had an epic second-half comeback, after really not playing well at all with much energy and intensity and effort in the first half against Ole Miss. They came back. They won that game. They put themselves in position, Ryan, and you saw the results. I mean, one more win would have gotten them in, and, of course, they blew a myriad of home games, 3 or 4 of those during the regular season, where if you get 1 or 2 of those, you're in the NCAA tournament. But they gave themselves an opportunity to do something no other team in the country had done all year, beat Kentucky twice. But the effort, started off strong but did not last, and it waned. And I think for all of us in the media that were in the post game, Dante Hall, great senior, scored his 1,000th point, had an outstanding career at Alabama, but he's sitting next to Avery Johnson, and he says he thinks their biggest problem is a lack of energy and a lack of effort at times and commitment. And when you hear that coming out of the player's mouth,
that's hard to comprehend. That's hard to comprehend.
It is. It's hard to get your head around. Wow.
Say that one more time, because for those who may have missed it, Dante Hall had the big statement that I think a lot of people picked up, and we're talking about a senior that will no longer be a part of this team. But look at, and he will obviously for this wonderful tournament that's coming to Tuscaloosa. They wanted to play in Coleman Coliseum, but anyway, say it one more time where people in the back of the room can hear what you said about Dante Hall.
He said, if he thought he and his teammates lacked at times energy, effort, and commitment. And and that's the most damning thing you can say, to me, if you're not living up to expectations and your head coach is in year 4. And Avery Johnson's a great guy, but I'm just not sure he's ever totally understood the college game. And when Dante Hall said that, we were all just sort of stunned. It's amazing. I think it's a damning comment on the program, and it's the complete opposite of what's going on at Auburn. I know Tennessee didn't play well against the Tigers, but what they've done this year on the court, what Kentucky did to Alabama, they blocked 9 shots in the first half, and most of that was just, effort and energy and hustle. They played like the desperate team trying to get to the NCAA tournament, while Alabama started off tied at 6. They were playing hard, but as usual, they just seemed to back down. And that when Dante Hall said that, as good a kid as he is, to me, just it left you just really speechless, honestly. If you're in the media and you're wondering about the future of Avery Johnson going forward.
All right, if you're guessing, and if we're playing Alabama and LSU this weekend, Drew will ask always for a prediction, and you'd always say, well, I believe Alabama's going to win by 2 touchdowns. I think it's unknown right now, the decision of Greg Byrne. If you look, there's not too many in that close-knit circle of Greg Byrne, and I said it going on the air that it's a difficult decision either way. If you keep Avery Johnson, that's a big decision, and I don't know exactly. Let's take that scenario. If they keep him, what's that message going to be like? And then we'll go to the other side. If Greg Byrne says, I'm standing behind Avery Johnson. I believe in him. I think they're building something special here. What's the reaction?
Well, I just think it's apathy at this point. For example, if he comes back and they're able to go 20-13 and get into the NCAA tournament as a 9 or a 10 seed, and then they lose in the first round, are you still going anywhere? Is there going to be, a big time progress? I'll give you one of the best I could come up with. Mississippi State a year ago, Ryan, under Ben Howland, they went 9-9 in the SEC. I think they won 25 games. They end up in the NIT because they didn't play a great strength of schedule. But you know what they did this year? They played a stronger schedule. They've won 20-plus games yet again, and they got a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, does that mean they're going to win games? They may lose to Liberty in the first round. But they also might go to the Sweet 16, at least win a game. But to me, that's progress. You go from the NIT to a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. In other words, you gained a lot of respect around the country. You're considered among the top 25 teams in the tournament. Alabama couldn't even make it with one of the weaker bubbles we've seen. They were one of the first 4 out. But to me, it's a step back. Last year, you were a 9 seed. You went over an 8 seed. You're in the NCAA tournament. You go play Villanova, and you lose to the national champions. You play them probably tougher or as tough as anybody did in the tournament. That's something to build on. But then if you go backwards, then and I will say this: there was not significant injuries this year to cause anything like that. We've seen other teams around college basketball that have had a lot of guys banged up, including Michigan State. Michigan State and Tom Izzo, they lose Josh Langford, who I know personally, who I've interviewed on my show. He goes down in early December, averaging 15 points per game. They lose one of their best role players yesterday to a lower leg injury. Yet they still beat Michigan State and win the Big Ten tournament and the Big Ten regular season without a captain like Josh Langford. It's because the culture is sound and they have guys ready to step up. Alabama, they lose Colin Sexton to the NBA draft, their first-round draft choice since 2001, and Gerald Wallace. And then Avery Johnson and others are lamenting, well, they don't have a Colin Sexton to will them to victories. You want to know why? Because the program is not sound. There's not a solid foundation. And I think when you take a step back like that, it's hard to take steps forward because if you're Alabama right now in the SEC under the current leadership, the league is only going to get tougher. And you look at what Auburn's doing across the state, what Tennessee's doing with Rick Barnes, they're only going to continue to recruit and get better. And with Alabama, it just feels like they're running in the mud.
All right, so if that is the decision, if Greg Byrne decides that he's going to bring Avery Johnson back for year number 5, it's going to be met with some – it reminds me a little bit when they brought Anthony Grant back one more year. Because you just don't feel like that you're going anywhere. You just feel like you're standing still.
Right, and remember they brought him back after I think a 13-18 record, and then let him come back. And to me, as soon as Trevor Lacey left the program, and then he went 13-18, he should have been bought out and gone. I think that administration, they ended up letting Grant stay a year too long. And then if you're Avery Johnson, I still think he's a beloved guy. He's someone that's got a lot but I just think he has a lot of friends and allies on the NBA level. I think whether he wanted to coach or he wanted to be a front office guy, he could definitely do that. He would be hired for television in 2 seconds. He's got options on the pro level. And to me, what this needs to be is an amicable divorce. He goes on to the pro level where he's most comfortable and where his family's happy. And then Alabama goes and hires someone that understands college basketball and they can get this program jump-started because there's still enough talent in the program. If you get somebody in here that is, as Cecil Hurd is referred to, commit fully to basketball. And what I mean by that, they've continued to up the salary every time they've hired someone. But what this means is commit to the program fully, salary-wise, also follow through with the Crimson Standard and the new arena, the new refurbished arena. And you have to commit to college basketball because, you know what? I never thought in my life I would ever hear Dick Vitale, the great Dick Vitale, a legend in broadcasting, repeatedly on Sunday talk about Auburn Arena being one of the best environments in all of college basketball. And you want to know why that is? Because they built the arena and then they hired the right coach, whatever his background may be, and he's got that product energized, and now they're excited about college basketball. Alabama fans want the same thing, but they're just frustrated. And you can catch lightning in a bottle again, but it's up to Greg Byrne to make that move as an athletic director to me and get Alabama basketball back to where it needs to be, which is one of the upper-level programs in the SEC. And if the Auburn Tigers are – Bruce Pearl made the statement this weekend, if they're a top 25 program, well, then that should be Alabama's target because they have been in the past. It's just been a while, since really the days of Mark Godfrey and his zenith when he had them number one in the country for a short period of time. Now, by the time he left, it wasn't the case, but he did restore Alabama to really a top 25 program, but it just needs to be done again, and it's been a while, been over 10 years.
All right, let me go into the conversation here just for a couple of seconds. Avery Johnson has been featured on this show, on your show a ton. Every time we talk, and I'm sure you feel the same way his energy to me is contagious. His personality, his media friendly, everything, that part of it is great. If you're around this guy, I've said it on this program, I think it's impossible to have a bad day if you're in the room with Avery Johnson. That has not been that way for the last few weeks. You and anybody was in those press conference rooms, it seems like something is missing there. And I'm sure it's probably the frustration because the players are picking up on it. When you say that there's a lack of commitment coming from a player, that's a big statement. Why did Avery Johnson, and he said it before, we've played the audio clip. He said this team going into, I believe, the 30th game, he said, I cannot put my finger on the reason why they lack effort and energy. That's coming from a 4-year head coach, mega money, and we're talking about not getting beat with schematic-wise, but getting beat with effort and commitment. How can that be? How can a guy that motivates, I believe that guy could motivate me to run down Scotland Boulevard. I mean, Avery Johnson seems like a pure, natural motivator. How can it be that something has went wrong?
Well, I think, obviously, he understands media relations. He understands how to get the fans excited, but there has to be a disconnect with his players and the message. And I think also it's how the team has been handled. Ryan, I mean, we're talking in the first half of the Ole Miss game, for example. This is win or you're done. Win or go home. They're playing 11 guys in the first half. 11. So, in other words, there's not really a set rotation. Now, that wasn't the case in the second half. Alabama adjusted. They went with a much smaller rotation of about 7 or 8 guys, and they came back and they solidly whipped Ole Miss in the second half. I mean, completely destroyed them, outscoring them, by 17 points and whatnot. But in the first half, there wasn't really a plan. It was like grab bagging and trying to get 11 guys out there. And so it's just why. And then with Daniel Giddens' injury, he was out of the rotation. You saw much more Galen Smith. He produced. And then due to guys struggling a little bit, Galen struggled a little bit against Kentucky. Dante Hall struggled the first half. You saw Alex Reese get out there, and he had his best game of the season at 15 points, knocked down some shots. He had been completely out of the rotation until late in the season. What they didn't do a very good job of, to me, Ryan, is defining roles. And that's why, where guys are confident in what they're doing. And they know, if you look at teams like Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, they define the roles of what they want guys to do, so guys are very comfortable. I was in a press conference with John Calipari after they beat Alabama, and the thing that I really liked what he said was, I asked him about Tyler Hero. He's a guy that missed the game-winning shot and was really struggling against Alabama in late December when they played Kentucky to start the SEC schedule in early January. He said, basically, Tyler Hero was struggling, and he told Tyler Hero, look, I know you're struggling right now. Your man's dunking on you. He's driving on you. He's like, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to learn how to guard and defend. And if you guard and defend, you know how he wants you to play on offense. You'll play well offensively because you'll be confident. But the first thing you have to do is guard somebody. And I think Alabama, if you look at their stats, and Avery Johnson made comment about it yesterday on the teleconference, they're one of the worst second-half teams in the country, and they just took 2 or 3 steps back defensively this year. And defense is all about effort and hustle. That's what defense and rebounding is. And I just think, for whatever reason, this group had tuned out Avery Johnson, is not listening to him, and he didn't know how to fix it. And I think that goes more back to the pro mentality, the NBA mentality, and not, understanding the college game.
Drew DeArmond, let's talk a little football here. Nick Saban back out on the football field this afternoon. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. It gets us away from basketball for a couple of minutes. And we're going to try to jam in all these practices leading up to A-Day coming up on April the 13th. It's obviously a big day for Alabama to be back out on their practice field.
It really is. I think the Ale Cahill watch has started. Everybody hoping that he'll return to practice. Of course, we heard from Nick Saban, after that practice over a week ago on Friday. He said that Ale was trying to figure some things out, and they were trying to help him, and they weren't sure when he was going to return to football. There's been a lot of rumors about him coming back after spring break. Hopefully he'll be out there. He's a young player everybody would like to see develop at the inside linebacker spot. Right now that depth is scary there because Dylan Moses is the only one with a lot of experience. Joshua McMillan certainly has some situational experience and is a fifth-year senior, but still, he's a guy that's probably a little bit limited athletically. Ale Cahill was a great special teams player, showed a lot of potential five-star talent coming from Nevada. So you hope he comes out there to develop. Jalen Moody, same situation. He's a sophomore from South Carolina. He played some last year. How is he going to continue to develop? And Markel Benton, the redshirt sophomore. So a lot of people will be watching those inside backers, watching the defensive linemen, guys like Christian Barmore, young players, Stephon Wynn, and, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Antonio Alfano. Everybody's already heard so much about him. So the D-line will be watched closely. Pete Golding as a coach, how this defense is going to look because it's going to be completely revamped. So I think who's going to replace Deontay Thompson at that safety spot. So defense is going to draw a lot of eyes. And as we talked about last week, that offensive line, how is it going to settle in? Alex Leatherwood, to me, moving to his natural spot at left tackle. Can he hold off, a guy like Evan Neal, who's such a talent, who's supposedly already dropped 20-plus pounds as he's been in the program, big-time talent. Where does he fit? Where does Matt Womack fit? A lot of storylines to follow. And then, of course, who's going to replace the great Irv Smith, who, to me, is still one of the most unheralded football players to come through Alabama in many a moon, and I think he's going to have a great pro career.
We're talking to Drew DeArmond. Drew DeArmond, 97.7 The Zone. Give me a prediction. You think Avery Johnson survives?
I do not think he will return as the head basketball coach at the University of Alabama. I think he's going to return to where he's more comfortable on the pro level and in some sort of capacity, and I think he'll do a great job up there. But I don't think that college basketball is his long-term future.
Wow. That's coming big statement from Drew DeArmond, and certainly close to Avery Johnson. But I think a lot of those, it's a lot of encryptic tweets. It's a lot of people that were in Avery Johnson's corner is no longer there. Drew, as always, invite people how they can listen and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our radio program, myself and my co-host Scott Tyson, you can connect with my personal account at DrewD977ESPN, also with Scott Tyson at Scott Tyson1, and you can connect with our radio station at 977ESPN, and we are ESPN 97.7 The Zone. We're the only sports talk radio station in the city of Huntsville under new ownership in the last year, so we're really excited about that. And we continue to grow our product, and our radio program is daily, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We'd love you to listen live. If not, you check out our SoundCloud page. We podcast everything, and we love featuring guys like yourself and others throughout the Southeast and the country each morning in the Rocket City of Huntsville.
Yeah, but I always notice my basketball time during basketball season, it gets reduced.
Well, we're definitely going to have you picking your bracket on Friday, Ryan Fowler, even though it'll already be well underway.
Hey, I'm ready for my bracket, and I'm going to fire up the audience coming up in a couple of minutes. But anyway, Drew, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you for being a part of the show. Certainly outstanding coverage from the Nashville, the SEC tournament. Thank you so much. Have a great day, man.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Hey,